Not everyone who questions you deserves an answer. One of the most exhausting things we can do is feel obligated to explain ourselves to everyone who asks, "Why did you make that decision? Why did you leave? Why did you stay? Why did you change? Why do you believe that? Why are you doing this now?" At first glance, those questions seem reasonable, and sometimes they are. Sometimes questions come from genuine curiosity. Sometimes they come from a desire to understand. Sometimes they come from care. But not all questions are created equally. Some questions are not invitations to understanding. They are invitations to defend yourself. And one of the most important lessons I have learned is this: not everyone who questions you deserves an answer. Curiosity and judgment often sound the same. This is where people get confused. Both curiosity and judgment can arrive in the form of a question. One seeks understanding, the other seeks validation for an opinion that has already been formed. The words may sound similar. The energy behind them is not. A curious person listens. A judgmental person waits for their turn to disagree. A curious person wants insight. A judgmental person wants confirmation. Learning to recognize the difference can save you a tremendous amount of emotional energy. Some people are not asking to learn. They are asking to challenge, to criticize, to discredit, to create doubt, to position themselves as right. And if you have ever found yourself explaining the same thing repeatedly to someone who never seems satisfied, you have likely experienced this. No explanation is enough. No clarification is enough. No amount of honesty changes the outcome, because the goal was never understanding. The goal was opposition. You do not need to defend every decision. One consequence of people pleasing is believing that every choice requires justification, that your boundaries require explanation, that your growth requires approval, that your decisions require consensus. They do not. You are allowed to make choices that other people do not understand. You are allowed to change direction. You are allowed to outgrow situations. You are allowed to protect your peace without presenting a detailed defense of your actions. The need to explain often comes from fear. Fear of being misunderstood, fear of being judged, fear of disappointing people, fear of being seen as selfish, wrong, or unreasonable. Those fears are deeply human, but they can also become traps. Because when we constantly seek permission to live our lives, we hand other people authority they were never meant to have. And the more authority we hand away, the less connected we become to ourselves. Some questions are disguised demands. Not every question deserves an answer because not every question is actually a question. Sometimes a question is a demand. Explain yourself, justify yourself, convince me, prove it. Make me comfortable with your decision. But your responsibility is not to make everyone comfortable. Your responsibility is to live honestly. Those are not the same thing. People who respect you will respect your answer. One of the clearest signs of a healthy relationship is that people can accept an answer they do not necessarily agree with. They may not understand your choice. They may not have made the same decision, but they respect your right to make it. People who genuinely care about you do not require endless explanations. They trust that you are capable of making decisions for yourself. And that trust is a form of respect. You are not responsible for everyone's opinion. This truth took me a long time to learn. No matter how clearly you explain yourself, some people will misunderstand. Some people will disagree. Some people will create a story that fits their own perspective, and that is their right. Just as it is your right to stop trying to manage it. You cannot control how people interpret your life. You can only control whether you live it authentically. Silence is sometimes the most powerful answer. We often think strength means having the perfect response, the perfect explanation, the perfect argument, the perfect defense. But sometimes strength looks very different. Sometimes strength is choosing not to engage, not because you cannot answer, because you no longer feel obligated to. That is not avoidance. It is discernment, knowing where to best invest your energy. Not every audience deserves access. This may be one of the most important lessons of all. Access is earned. Not everyone deserves access to your thoughts, your motivations, your healing, your decisions, your dreams. Some people will honor that information. Others will weaponize it. Wisdom is learning the difference. Save your energy for people who listen. The goal is not to become closed off. The goal is not to stop communicating. The goal is to become selective, to recognize the difference between conversations that create understanding and conversations that drain you, to recognize who is listening and who is merely waiting for ammunition. Your time is valuable. Your energy is valuable. Your peace is valuable. Treat them accordingly. You do not owe everyone an explanation. If someone asks a sincere question, answer if you choose. If someone seeks understanding, offer it if it feels right. But if someone is asking you to justify your existence, your boundaries, your growth, or your choices, remember this: you are not obligated to participate. Not everyone who questions you deserves an answer. Some people deserve an explanation. Some people deserve a conversation. And some people deserve your silence. Learning the difference is a form of freedom. Slay reflection. S. See the pattern. Is there someone in your life who repeatedly questions your choices without truly listening to your answers? L. Look at the motivation. Do their questions come from curiosity or judgment? A. Acknowledge your right. What decision have you been over explaining in an effort to gain understanding or approval? Why? Your next step. How can you protect your energy while still communicating honestly? Call to action. Join the conversation. I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever realized that someone was questioning you not to understand you, but to challenge your right to choose? Share your story in the comments. Let's cheer each other on. And if you know someone who might need this reminder, send this to them. Sometimes all we need is a nudge. I'm Carrie Genzel, reading a blog from stateofslay.com. Slay on.